The opinions expressed by the guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the hosts or the producers of this show.
Hey, it's your girl, Renee Graziano, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Crisis Queen Podcast. Today I have, she might as well just be my sister, okay? Because we come from the same world.
Yes.
Welcome, Chanel Capra. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for showing up on time.
Oh
Everybody, I want you to know that she has the ability of showing up on time.
Yes.
Don't let this one fool you.
Please, please. It's kind of, I'm in recovery for my lateness.
Yes.
It's a situation.
It's a real thing, though.
I was born late. So I feel like it's my birthright.
Okay, we'll let you have that one. How many days were you late, though?
I think like a week or two. Like,
okay, so you only have 14 minutes to be late then.
Why, you only giving me a minute a day?
I'm only giving you as many days as you were late to
You're
really
just making it convenient for yourself. You only want to wait 14 minutes for me. But I'm working on it.
I'm super excited to have you. I'm super excited to talk about stuff that other people don't truly understand.
Yes.
Being that we come from the same world.
Mm-hmm.
And your grandfather and my father were friends. Well, your grandpa, you're lucky, is still alive. My father passed, but they were.
Yes. But my father passed too.
Yes.
And he was involved in the lifestyle as well.
Yes, I got a little information when I was at your house for Easter.
Yeah, well, that's when the information gets dropped. That's why.
I didn't know your full nationality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I got the brown. Now I know why you were sending me the brown hearts, the brown hands. I'm like, does she do that?
It's never a conversation.
It's not. But let's talk about it.
And I just.
You're really Sicilian.
Oh my God. My mom and I were just talking about that the other day, and we were joking about that because my grandfather remarried, and his wife, my step grandmother, is Sicilian, and he used to joke with her all the time about it. So it's just like, there was this affectionate banter in our household, right. But I do deal with the burden that my birth was definitely a major disruption in the family code and ethics and world, and
which is super unfair. But for the listeners that don't know, your father is from what island is
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic.
And he owned land that bordered Haiti.
Okay.
So it was an island within the island, and he met his demise over that. He was killed over a land dispute over that.
Sorry.
And but I didn't really even, it was like never a discussion about race. Me being any different from anyone else in the family. Amen. Like I was raised with my Italian family. My father was incarcerated by the time I was 6 years old. Okay. So, and I went back to live with my great-grandparents in the Bronx.
Yeah, you can hear the Bronx coming out of you.
Even though
I've been in through your fucking pores.
Well, with you, it gets really thick.
I know it does.
You give me anybody from the East Coast, and it's like full-fledged.
We got Staten Island and the Bronx in the house. Absolutely.
I've never been to Staten Island.
You're not missing anything. And
but I want to go.
We're born on the dump, matter of fact. You know what? I just learned this. Check this out. You know Jennifer Esposito?
Yes. Okay. Oh my God, love her.
She's phenomenal.
So proud of her.
Tell me about it.
So, I mean, for me as a filmmaker and a writer, like I'm getting the Fresh Kills hat, the shirt. Like I'm my own
Fresh
party.
Kills really is? Do you know what Fresh?
Yes.
I didn't fucking know what Fresh Kills meant. I thought it was fresh kill.
Okay,
like a fresh kill.
But listen, I didn't know what it meant till about a year ago. I'm working on like a vampire script comedy.
Okay.
And I'm taking it back to the Bronx. And I'm taking it back to like City Island and the little islands. Apparently there's an island called Rat Island.
My ex-husband lives there. You didn't know about it? 1, 2, 3, I'm a fucking rat at Rat Island.
Listen, there's all these there's Rat Island. Then there's another island, which is like where people used to bury their dead that couldn't afford a burial.
Oh, yes. Okay, so that I know about. They're not...
I forgot what it's called.
Potter's Island?
Yes, it's called, but Potter's Fields is straight up in the Bible, and I always wanted to do a story about it. Yes.
I didn't know
So when Judas backstabbed Jesus and did what he did, he went and took the silver, and they bought a land, and they called it the Field of Blood, Potter's Field, because it was cursed.
Really?
Because it was bought with that
Well, it
money.
really
that,
is
of course, I mean,
cursed.
honestly.
If all the fucking dead people
I
are
was
there.
like, all of these, like, I'm a horror buff. So it made me feel like very like, oh my God, my roots are like, there's like all
In the
these other
field.
cool things about New York that we,
Absolutely.
aside from the mob, like there's a whole other like really
There's
cool
nothing-
stuff.
Okay, but there's nothing more exciting than the mob.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but it's like, I mean,
No, but it's very interesting. Rat Island. I'm wondering if it was called Rat Island because there's a lot of rats
and
on
somebody
the
just
island.
recently bought it for like $150,000 during the pandemic. I was a little jealous.
Are we going to start moving the rats over to the Rat Island?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because
All
I got a
know
few
is-
addresses where they live. I can name them. Ah,
But it's
I can
so
name
funny.
drop.
It's when I told my mother, I went, Ma, you never told me about Rat Island. She's like, oh, I can tell you who's buried there. I was like, no. And then she said to me, she's like, what do you mean there's a real? I said, yes.
Wow.
So when I go back to New York this summer, I'm going like a tourist.
Okay, I'm going with
getting
you.
like a little camera around my neck. I'm going
no
to Staten
disposables.
Island.
Let's go.
Will you please?
I'll take
do
you to
it
Fresh
with me?
Kills.
I
So-
don't know how far I can make it up, but I just the Statue of Liberty. I only saw it one
We don't
time.
even own her.
I know.
The French do. We've
All
sold.
right,
We've sold our islands and little
Yes.
things off.
Okay, I never went to Fire. The only islands I
don't-
went to was Jones Beach.
Okay, you don't want
Which
to.
is
really,
what,
Fire
Long Island?
Yeah, it's Long Island. Fire Island is very.
Ellis Island never went to.
That's when my grandmother came through. Ellis
Okay.
Island. So Fire
I
Island.
think my grandparents,
probably.
great-grandparents,
Yeah, everybody
too.
had to come
Everybody.
through. The only way you had to get to
We're
here is
really
go through.
smart. We're really smart.
We are. We just didn't pay attention in geography. Is it called? Was that the class?
It was
I think I had to
geography, I
sleep
believe.
with my teacher to pass the class.
Actually, that's like shameful because I was like on the honor roll. I was a geek and I had like 100% average.
Well, I might have been a tramp because
in
I slept
it.
with my gym teacher. He told me I needed this credit for the class, and he fucking lied. I didn't.
Oh my God, what grade?
But he wasn't that much older than me. I was 17, and he was like 25.
So you had a hot gym teacher. I never had hot gym
He
teachers.
was so hot.
I had like
I
the
would have
gym
just slept with him
teachers.
without telling him I needed the fucking credit.
That's
I would've did
unfair.
it.
My gym teachers always had like the mullet and whiskers. Like
Oh,
it was
no,
not.
this
It was
man
not cute.
So cute. But all right, let's get
Okay.
into it. So, filmmaker,
Yes.
movie writer, director.
Yes.
Talk to me about it. Your first film.
My first film was a spoof on. It was called Nora's Hair Salon.
Okay. It's my
And-
grandma's name, Nora.
Is it?
Yeah.
I came up with the name because it was just a warm name, and it was with Jennifer Lewis and Tatiana Ali.
Okay.
And that was the first project that I got. Like I got a check for my rent.
All
And I was like,
right.
oh my God, you mean I could write? I was always writing my own ideas. My brother is an actor,
Yes.
Francis Capra.
Francis Capra from The Bronx Tale.
From A Bronx Tale. And A Bronx Tale really was just it. You know, I always say, my family and I, we are the real Bronx Tale. We
yeah.
really are, from the dynamic of, you know, the working man, the mentality that the working man is a sucker. And everything that, you know, Sonny believed in was just our upbringing.
Right.
And then the fact that my mom fell in love outside of the race
Yes.
in such a way. And in reality, A Bronx Tale took us from the Bronx and brought us out here. It was always my mom's dream from when she was a little girl. My grandfather, they owned a movie theater in Westchester, and my mother used to go to work with him every day. And she used to dance in the movie theater when it was empty.
I love it. Your mother's personality is amazing.
And it was her
so
dream.
welcoming and warm.
Hollywood, she loves you. She really
as I
loves
do
you. She
love
wanted
her.
to be here today.
Oh, she's so cute.
I can't wait. We all
I'm
gotta hang
hoping
out.
Speedy recovery for not feeling
Yes.
so good.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Prayers and wishes.
She's such a trooper. But her dream was Hollywood. That was her
Okay.
dream. Like, that was it since a little girl, and everybody was like, oh, yeah, Emery, whatever. And then my brother goes and gets discovered out of 50,000 kids.
Yes.
And our lives, Robert De Niro, Chaz Palminteri, they changed our lives. Just
I'm
that
sure.
one yes. And we moved out here to California, and we never looked back.
So when did I know what film I'm working up towards?
Yes.
So, but before I get there, he wasn't the only one that was discovered on A Bronx Tale. You discovered a boyfriend.
I did. So my brother played young C, and I fell in love with big C.
Yes,
that was
you
my
did.
first love.
And that was your first love. And how long did you date?
We dated, let's see, I was like 14, 15, all the way through high school, till the end of high school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you end on good terms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I, he's my first love. I'll always love him.
Much love to Lilo.
Wish him the best. But, it was definitely, I'm so proud of him. He's done such tremendous leaps and bounds through his recovery.
Absolutely.
And so it's very important for me to just support everybody and anybody.
You're very good that way.
I just have to. For me, I feel like at the end of the day, we're holding back my tears, but at the end of the day, I need you to win, Renee. I need you to win.
It's so great.
But I need you to win. I need people to win out of these traumas, out of these obstacles that take us off our purpose, because that makes me know I can.
Oh, you most certainly can.
And it makes me know that the next person that is looking for that rope of hope, that they can win too. And I just feel like we don't really focus on that, on each other's wins. We're so quick to wait for somebody to mess up. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Even if they are doing well, we're so ready to see, let's see how well they're going to do.
Let's see how long this lasts.
Exactly.
Renee sober 7 months. Oh, shit. I think there's people taking bets on me. I kid you not. I recently got a phone call from that fat piece of shit ex-boyfriend that I was dating, the con man. And he was like, the only reason why people are interested in you is because they want to hear about your your addiction, because you're nothing but a drug addict. And I actually had to sit there for a second, and I didn't even say the things that I wanted to say.
You don't need to.
And no, I didn't. And then I thought about it and be like, you're that mad at me, aren't you? That I'm winning.
Yeah.
Even with addiction, I'm still winning.
Yes.
I'm still on the big screen, buddy. Have a seat in the back where the fuck you belong.
And you know what? It's not it's not really personal towards you. It's his inability to change.
His
and
inabilities
to heal
are
and
everywhere.
to grow. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I just feel like everybody wants to. It's a lot. This is a big responsibility to fight back and to want to recover, to do better, to grow,
to be better. I want to be better for my grandchildren.
It's a huge thing.
So since we touched on trauma, let's get into it about trauma.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know you suffer silently.
Yes.
And that's a really big thing for me. I don't like that people have to suffer silently. I think everybody should be able to share their trauma with somebody who's level, their feet are in the ground, that you could bounce that off of, because it's hard to carry. It's heavy. It's extremely heavy to carry trauma.
And you carry it until you break.
Yeah, and that's the craziest part. I carried it. I always say I bend, I don't break.
Yeah.
But I've literally bent in half now. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've bent, but I'm not completely broken. And I think the person that gets completely broken sometimes isn't able to come back from it.
No.
So, because I know I'm a fighter, I'm going to kick and scream the whole fucking way, going in and coming out. My
big thing is support. My big thing is support. And I don't know if people understand what that simple phone call is. Are you okay?
Hello?
Whether it's in the middle of the night, whether it's a day,
She said the middle of the night, everybody, because she doesn't sleep. So around 3:00 in the morning, my phone will go off.
Are you okay?
Are you okay? So let's talk about your real dad. Your only dad, actually. That's your father.
My only dad.
You did have a stepdad, but your father. So is there trauma surrounding?
I had a step monster. I didn't have a stepdad.
Oh, we'll talk about that monster afterwards. With your dad, was there trauma with your dad coming in and out of your life? You mentioned that he went to jail when you were 6.
Yes.
And how old were you when he passed away?
I was 23.
Okay. So for those 17 years, how long was he in jail for?
My whole life.
Oh.
My whole life. He came home for a brief amount of time. So when I go back to the entire dynamics of my father and I think like the root of the trauma, for me, my mom had me at 15.
Like my mother had my sister.
And I was the only baby in the family.
Right.
And the family was dealing with, my grandfather had been incarcerated during that time. So his coming home, my grandfather and my grandmother both split up.
Right.
So there was that divorce happening, which now, in this time, these things weren't popular.
Correct.
Divorce
Correct.
wasn't popular. For my grandmother, the healing that I've done is I'm writing my family story. I'm writing the stories that I heard as a little girl growing up. And I'm writing them as much as I began writing them from the men's perspective, these powerful men. I think I more or less did that just because that was the template. If you're going to write a mob show, that's what you're going to do. You're going to write about mob men.
Right, because the men were the mob.
Yes.
We were our own mob at home, but not everybody understands mob, mafia, what happens in the mob world.
No.
They can only assume, unless you're really born from, you can only really assume.
Yes. And growing up, I was told that, there was this certain book that was written and no one was allowed to read it and all of this stuff. So I come out to California, I become a screenwriter, producer. I'm like, everybody's like, what's your next project going to be? I'm like,
the mob.
The book I'm not allowed to read. So I go and I send for this book. I have to get it from like this last library in Louisiana. They send it out to me. And
What's
sure
the name
enough,
of the book?
Pleasant Avenue Connection.
I didn't even know there was this book, Pleasant Avenue.
And sure enough, in the middle of the book, I'm turning in and I'm reading and I'm like, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. And then bam, my grandfather's mugshot. And he's looking at me like, granddaughter,
right?
You shouldn't be reading this.
Wow. So is that how you learned who you were and what you were from?
I always knew who I was, but it was surreal to be a writer and to now, for me, I create characters and I'll create these characters with weaknesses that are similar to my weaknesses, strengths that are similar to mine. That's just what we do as writers. But for me, therapeutically, it was so incredible to write these men like my grandfather,
right?
Because it's it's not a biopic.
Those are the men, man. I miss those men.
And I could suddenly, my mom and I would kind of get into it because there's still a lot of pain that my mom has there. There's tremendous guilt that my mom has. That
abandonment issues. At all?
She has tremendous guilt that she got pregnant while he was away, and that it broke his heart in such a way. They were so super close, and that that she chose me. And indirectly, that guilt spilled over to me too. I have to make it. Like, I have to amount to this tremendous sacrifice and this tremendous decision that my mother made. Not because my mom put that on me, but that's just my Catholic guilt.
Right, but you should know you already have achieved that. You should know that.
I hope so.
I know it every time I see your sister. So I know it every time I see Ava that I know you did everything you can to make sure she could. And that reminds me of my relationship with my sister, Jennifer.
Yes.
Jennifer definitely sacrificed her mental peace working with me.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely no fucking cakewalk.
But Renee, it's the support.
I would have the fucking nail file in the cake. Just understand that one. I know you
listen to me. We work amazingly, but we fight hard and beautifully, and we love even harder. And I think that, no matter what, but look, we've gone through the trauma together. We've gone through the battlefield together. So when it comes, I think, to work and the work atmosphere for my sister and I, we're like, really? This is a cakewalk. Like, you don't even know what we've been through.
Right.
And she's actually taught me the lesson in, I remember one day it was a situation with her dad that was really, really, really terrible. And then it was really painful. And my sister gives me one hug annually.
Oh my God, she might be Jennifer.
I get one hug per year.
My sister Jennifer.
Unless we're doing reality TV. Now, if we're doing reality TV, she hugs me like nonstop. I honestly want to go back to reality TV
just
with
to
her,
get some hugs.
just so I get some hugs and
my
some
sister
love.
does to me? She'll be like, "Get the fuck out of here, bitch! Don't try to fucking hug me."
I almost crashed on the way here today because she was like, "I love you." I was like,
"Oh, I've never even heard my sister say I love you." You hear that? You hear that?
But that's it. I'm done. And maybe I might get
Next
like a
year?
peck on the cheek for my birthday and then Christmas, and that'll be it. And that's okay.
I love it. Wait, your birthday is coming.
It's coming. So yeah, I was surprised I got the "I love you" now because
what's the date?
The 25th.
The 25th. Yes, we are cancers.
We are. We're so twinning. I can't. Everything's personal, and we're so emotional.
Everything is personal, though. It's really all about us.
In my healing, I'm trying not to take everything personally.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey guys, Renee Graziano here. And let me ask you, what's something that scares you? I'm not talking about the ghosts and zombies we see at Halloween. No, I mean those real life fears that keep us up at night. For me, it was the fear of facing my own emotions. I was afraid of what I'd find if I really looked inside. But let me tell you, therapy helped me face those fears head on. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Therapy gave me the tools to work through my anxiety, taught me how to process emotions, and most importantly, it empowered me not to let fear control my life. And that's what BetterHelp can offer you. It's fully online, so you can get the help you need whenever and whenever works for you. Just answer a few questions and get matched with a licensed therapist who you can switch at any time if it doesn't feel like the right fit. So if you're ready to face your fears, BetterHelp is there for you. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/crisis today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/crisis, CRYSIS. Today's episode is brought to you by OneSkin. And believe me, if you want to live that fabulous life like me, it all starts with your skin. Now, you know I'm about the mob royalty life, big hair, diamonds, and looking good no matter what. But here's the thing, honey. It doesn't matter how much glam you pile on your skin if it's not looking right underneath. That's why I'm hooked on OneSkin. Let me break it down for you. I've been using their face moisturizer and eye kit. And let me tell you, this stuff is magic. My skin has never felt softer or smoother. You know how much I love a good late night, right? Well, those sleepless nights don't leave a trace anymore. No more bags under my eyes, no more tired skin. It's like I'm glowing even when I've been up all night. I'm not kidding. This product makes me feel like I'm ready to take on the world. And you know, I never settle for anything less than fabulous. What I love about OneSkin is that it's not just a quick fix. Oh no, this is the real deal. It's powered by this fancy OS1 peptide that really goes deep into your skin and turns back the clock. We're talking revisiting aging here, ladies. It's not just about covering up wrinkles or pretending to look good. It's about actually making your skin healthier from the inside out. And you know me, I don't do it halfway. If I'm gonna do skincare, it's gonna be top of the line, and that's exactly what OneSkin delivers. OneSkin is the world's first longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging, so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code CRISIS at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code CRISIS. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin.
Speaking of sisters, trauma, family, let's go back to your dad.
Yes. Okay.
Let's tell the story.
Let's stay on point. Let's not be all over the place.
Because we'll be here for like 3 days.
I don't want Jen to come in and pull my hair. I don't want you, Jen. I want you to like me. I don't want you to be all over the place.
Okay. So when it comes to your dad, and I can say this, like, I know my father being in jail, it's not really abandonment, but it is abandonment.
Yes.
So did you experience that type of that feeling?
I don't think I really experienced it till the second time he went away.
Okay.
So
this time now Francis is born.
So the time my brother was born, he wasn't even home from the hospital before my father.
Oh.
Actually, I'll never forget. My mom had just come home from the hospital, and there's just that visual that I think that we all have, that probably plants the seed of trauma as far as us as women sticking together.
Yes.
And I think that at the end of the day, whether we'll fight like cats and dogs, I think that the second you put a certain type of women from a certain type of lifestyle in a room together, which is usually the waiting room of a correctional facility. There's a silent understanding, and there's a silent camaraderie that happens within that womenhood.
You know, just for a second, we need to write the waiting room.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll talk about
we
that
could shoot that
afterwards.
really cheap, Jen. My eyelash stuck. Hold on.
Sorry about that. I had to get it out because my ADD just kicked in. Okay.
Oh my God, yes. MCC. Okay. So while getting there, yeah.
So your mom comes home from the hospital.
My mom comes home from the hospital. Now, at this time, my mom is in her, so let's see, I'm 5 years, so my mom's like 21, 22.
Baby.
Okay. And my father had this history where the big, not the big bust, but like the big job, the big job. Whenever he had the biggest job that was going to be like, this is the last one.
We're gonna have all the
After this one, I'm out.
Right. We're going to call those the Lufthansa.
He'd get
pinched
the next day, or he'd leave Earth forever.
Right.
So, and that was very, very sad. But this was, I remember, all I remember as a kid was that we had a penthouse in Westchester, and my mother had gotten wallpaper that was real leaves. They were real autumn leaves.
Wow.
And and my father got a white German Shepherd. Now, we never could have a dog before. So I think as a kid, when I go back and I close my eyes, like, there was white marble floors, there were real leaves on the walls, there was a white German Shepherd. We weren't living like the Brady Bunch. This was we were living a different
above
aesthetic.
The means. Yeah.
And I remember my mom sitting on the floor trying to get the leaf out of like the little outlet plate, and with a screwdriver, and her clear beige phone, antique phone next to her ringing, and she just stuck the screwdriver into the outlet and just sat there and just had the phone and just curled up. When I'm now as a woman and I look back and I'm like, she was a 21-year-old girl with her first apartment.
Wow. Chanel.
Like, her baby is in ICU in Mount Sinai. I'm there, and she's getting the call
that he's gone.
That my father's never coming home.
Wow.
And it was like in seconds, Renee. There was Goomba 1, Goomba 2, Goomba 3, Goomba 4. Men just coming in and out of the house and in their tracksuits and duffel bags and this, and packing up. And we were out of there. Boom, we're in the Bronx living with my great-grandparents.
Wow.
And it was like, and then I could tell you the smell of MCC, Metropolitan Correctional Center.
Smells like
that
shit.
was but honestly, my mom just had a way of raising us that everything was fun. Suddenly now going on the subway, because nobody would take her down to see my father.
Right.
So now my mom had to schlep her 2 kids. Before we knew it, that was our upbringing. We would go down and see my father as long as they kept him over there before they ended up transferring him to Danbury. And then they transferred him to Lake Placid. But every time we went to go see my dad, she would take, for me, all I remember was ham and cheese sandwiches. I loved the little mustard that came out of the packets. And these little like mustard pretzel things. And seeing my dad and just hugging him for those minutes.
You just gave me such a flashback of a visiting room.
The photos.
My son.
By the cinder block wall.
But that's how my son grew up.
Yeah.
He was 5 years old on prison visits.
And that's how my brother Francis grew up.
Yep, his father, my brother-in-law. That's all my son knew.
All we knew.
Every weekend. Get in the car. We're going for a ride. You can't go to football. Nope. We got to go see Poppy. It's Sunday. Got to go see. Drive up to Bradford, Pennsylvania. We would drive. I was driving to North Carolina and back.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know if the Chinese food restaurant is still there, but I remember that they had the most amazing dim sum, and my mom would take us there after.
Right across the street, a little bit
Right
up the
across
road.
the street, and my father we would wait for it, and I would stand at the corner, and my father would blow kisses.
Oh my God! Well, you were a block from Chinatown, so yeah.
And then she would take me to the Sanrio store and buy me like everything Hello Kitty and the Twinkle Twins, whatever.
Twinkle. Oh my
Yes.
God! Twinkle.
So I looked forward to seeing my dad. I was like, I'm gonna get to eat.
The erasers that smelled like bubble gum.
I had every single one. I wanted to like eat them. I loved
my
them.
God! They're erasers.
And the gum that tasted so good but lost its flavor by the time by the time we got to the Subway. The number 6.
Wow. So you experienced what my son did. I was much older. I was 21 when my father went to jail for the first time.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's harder,
He's been
though.
arrested. It wasn't as hard. I don't think
Because you have your own life at that point.
I was already
Yeah.
engaged to be
Okay.
married, so I'm
Oh.
to the devil. So I was already grown. If I was 21, Jen would be younger than me. Obviously, we're not
Okay.
going to give up her age because she might kill me. Coming in with duck,
That
duck. She's coming in.
that-
She's coming in. Look. Shh.
She's very pretty.
She's beautiful, isn't she?
Not that you don't look pretty in your photos, Jen.
Oh, I'm the favorite
like,
sister.
oh my
I'm the
God.
pretty. She's natural. Like she doesn't have to wear a stitch of makeup. The bitch.
You all are
We
beautiful.
all are. I will say
The
my
green
parents
eyes,
made it
it's
beautiful.
not fair.
No, she doesn't have fucking green eyes. Get that
All
right.
right, they're light.
They're not green.
They're not
though,
brown,
Chanel.
Renee. They're not brown.
No, they're not brown, but they ain't fucking green. But anyway, okay. So you had this trauma with your father, and so did your brother. I'm assuming now your brother.
Yeah, so from my brother, his trauma is from a male perspective. And as much as I've, suffered abuse from, my stepfather,
Right.
and the
Physical?
male figures have not been so great
Was
in my
it
life.
physical abuse?
Yeah, it was.
So your
but
stepfather
only for
was
me,
physically abusive to you.
Yeah, he was physically abusive to
Your
my
mother, to your
and I
mother.
was just always caught in the crossfire.
Okay.
We were just always caught in the crossfire. But he suffers from mental illness, and I think that that's a whole other conversation that we've now had as a family. I don't think we get so caught up in caring for those that are mentally ill. I think we've lost the conversation on the family members.
Yeah.
And the people left
100%,
behind.
because I know the damage I've caused.
Yeah.
And I know that my sisters, my mother, the trauma they had from me being not mentally okay. You know what I mean? And I'm lucky enough to say that my mental illness was really drug induced.
Yes.
The ADD, ADHD, and the dyslexia was from the very beginning, but the drugs definitely played a big part into my mental, demise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we love you so much. And it's like we see that you're hurting, and we want to fix, we want to heal, we want to help. And for him, he needed to be on medication. He needed to go to doctors, to treatment.
Right.
And he just refused. And the older that he got, and the more that he stayed unmedicated and accepting his diagnosis, the worse, he's bipolar schizophrenic. And so you have these manias and the manias were to eliminate me from the family dynamic, because if I was out of the picture, then he could be with my mom and the kids.
Right.
Never understanding the fact that my mom was like, no, you will never be able to hurt me
daughter.
again,
Right.
or hurt the kids again,
Right.
and that the violence was part of, if the mania wasn't being fulfilled, then
There was something
he was
else
violent. And people think that, schizophrenia or multiple personality is like you wake up like Norman Bates. No, it can be that he was this person that was this loving person who loved his family.
Before we start about
We're going to go back to my dad.
to your dad,
Yes, okay.
your father passing and the funeral.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. So where did we
So
leave
your
off
father,
about my dad?
so
Yeah,
your
so
father's
MCC.
in jail,
Mhm.
MCC.
Yes.
And then you and your brother was just born when he went in.
My brother was just born, so my brother's entire childhood was
Fatherless.
was fatherless, and I think that that's a much more impactful
for a boy.
for
I
a
agree.
boy. You know,
Yes.
my brother didn't have this male, although he had my grandfather as male identity and my great grandfather. My
Right.
great grandfather,
Oh, you're so blessed that
my
you
great
had them.
grandparents really raised us with
Right.
my mom.
I didn't have great.
yeah.
Mine passed, so I didn't have that.
Yeah, it was, but, and I think also the reason why they really raised us was because my grandparents were very young. Like they were in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Like if I think back now, I'm like, wow, I couldn't have done that.
Right.
Like I couldn't have been the kind of grandparent that I see other people being. Like
That's me. I'm a young grandma.
They were dealing with their own shit,
right.
and they needed to.
Right, but they have to stop the world for their grandchildren. You know, that's
and it was
just
very
what it
hard.
is.
So we had a very mature family. Like
Right.
I did not sit at the little kid table. I was with the big grown-ups.
at the head of the
I was
table.
hearing all of the things I should not have been hearing. I
Yep.
was recording all. It's a wonder I grew up to be a storyteller because I was
Absolutely.
filled with stories.
You're a natural
It was always
storyteller.
entertaining. Like I loved every aspect of my family.
Right.
Just an incredible family. However, the pain and the trauma, it's such a shame that I feel like a lot of great families and a lot of great personalities have such underlining
Factors.
trauma.
I do believe those things that happen that we don't discuss in the family fuck us up because we're born thinking, what's wrong with me? It's not what's wrong with me. What's wrong with my dad?
From a religious point, from a spiritual point, you know, me and my Jesus.
Amen.
You know, me and my Jesus, my husband. And there's generational curses. They talk about that.
Yes, correct.
But I also feel like generational trauma. Like
Most
regardless, it
definitely.
gets passed down from, you know, if the trauma doesn't get resolved in that
rolls
generation,
over.
it's going to get rolled over to the next and the next and the next.
Right.
And before we know it, we're dealing with we're not dealing just with our trauma. We're
Right.
dealing with our mother's trauma, our father's trauma, our
yeah.
grandparents' trauma.
And it's
trauma
never
that's just
about
not resolved.
us. It's not about us, but it ends up becoming about us in our little minds. We're trying to figure out, well, why is my dad so mad today?
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with us, but
Yes.
you take it on.
Yes,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Absolutely is
So
right.
in getting to visit my father, those prison visits are so brief. There's like nothing,
But they're so necessary.
But it was necessary for me in his passing
You
to
okay?
remember what he smelled like. You know, to remember what the look of his hand, that we have the same hands. So those things, you know,
I'm sorry.
they're brief, but they become
They're forever.
the lasting images that you
Yes.
have. And at the same time, there was I had been speaking to someone going through all of this so that I wouldn't be all over the place for you. And getting back to my father, so we have the MCC relationship, we have the, then the Danbury, then my aunt moves upstate New York and buys a horse ranch upstate New York. So when my father moved to Danbury, that was always exciting to go visit because we would just go up to her house for the weekend.
Yep.
And then
always
my
an
mom,
adventure.
it was always an adventure. Then Lake Placid was, my mom was just like, she got her license and there was like no stopping her. She was
Wow.
like every
So
day,
your
get in the
mother was
car,
in
kids.
love with your dad.
My mom knew nothing.
But him.
She chose my dad over my grandfather, and I think for her, she's still dealing with the pain and the hurt of that because these were the two men in her life. But
Right.
she didn't. My mom, when my grandfather went away, my mom was kind of just like, she was the youngest one, and my grandmother at that time was my sister's age, like 28,
Wow.
29. So
Wow.
they lose their mansion, they lose everything, their lives are turned upside down. My
Wow.
grandmother at that time, that stuff didn't happen in that era.
Right.
So like I said, when writing the story, I'm able now to look at my grandmother as this young girl who young woman who just like lost all of these things. She's having her own meltdown. And my mom was kind of like this little girl that was just like lost in the shuffle.
So it's your grandmother loses her husband, your mother loses
her father,
and you lose your grandpa.
And my two aunts, because my mom has two sisters.
Right.
So and they're, you know, they have their own trauma, they have their own lives. So everybody was kind of just like left to fend for themselves, which is a product of our lifestyle.
Absolutely.
When these men go away, us as women are left to fend for ourselves
and pick up the fucking pieces.
Pick up
and
the
rebuild
pieces.
The family
Either
that
try
was
to
broken.
hold the life down that they've built, that these men have built, which during that time in the 60s and the 70s, it was impossible.
Right.
It was impossible for my grandmother to
do
keep the Scarsdale Country Club. Like it was impossible for her to keep that affluency, that aesthetic. Like she could not do it. No.
Right.
Everything had to change. She had to go get a job. She got her license for the first time. And it wasn't like it was very, very high profile. Like they had Geraldo Rivera came to the house. My mom's dog bit him. Like it was like, my mom said she went to school the next day, which was an Ivy League. My grandfather kind of had this mentality like, no one else in the family will ever live this lifestyle. Like this is so that everybody goes to college and everybody lives the life he never got to live, and that's it. Like we don't talk about it. That's it. And my mom says she goes to school the next day. She's 9 or 10 years old at the time, and she walks into class, and the current event
is your grandfather.
Is my grandfather on the cover of the page of their house.
Mine was glued to my desk. I showed up in 4th grade, and the kids.
My mom says they toilet papered, they threw shit at the house, like they would just. It was. My mom says literally because they lived amongst like doctors and just Ivy League. So they didn't live amongst other
gangsters.
Yeah.
Right. No, I fully get it. I was in 4th grade, and these two girls, Danielle and Michelle, and one of the boys, they glued the article of my father getting arrested to my desk. I remember that as clear as day.
But now, by the time it happened for me, I was moved to the Bronx where everybody was going
to jail.
Everybody was going for dim sum and Sanrio. Like,
exactly.
Like it was not a big deal.
Correct.
Everybody's family photos all had a cinder block wall behind them. Everybody's dad wore khaki suits.
Right? Everybody's father wore a belt. And the jail pose.
When you had to leave class early, everybody knew where you were going.
I love it. You know what? I wouldn't want anything else for my life but than what I had.
Yeah.
So jumping into the abuse then. Okay, so you and your brother now, sadly, have to bury your father.
Yes. So we live in the Bronx. My father comes home now. I'm in 3rd grade. Okay. Going into 4th grade. And my father comes home for 8 months.
Okay.
And he comes home to the Bronx, where everything is acceptable.
Right.
Except we live in a very predominantly Italian neighborhood of the Bronx.
Right.
And my father comes
racism.
Home.
Right.
I never knew this. I never experienced this.
Racism.
I had there was nobody pulled me aside or whatever the situation was with my mom and my grandfather and whatever I was like the last to know. Like, what? Right. What do you mean I'm not like everybody else? What do you mean? Like, and that's not true because I am like everybody else.
You are, but you're not. No, but you are, but you're not because children that come from our world are different. I don't care what anybody tells me. We're a different breed of person. And it's not saying that we're better than or less than. We're just different.
So my father says, Mommy, I'm going to take you to school. I'm going to walk you to school. So I'm like, okay, Daddy, yeah, let's go. And I'm all proud. Like, I'm so proud. I'm going to have a dad that's going to drop me off now. And then he'll be here when I walk out. And that was the first day I was like, oh, so your dad's a
black man.
And I was like, oh.
But they didn't say the word.
Didn't even know that word.
They didn't say
the
word black. They said the N word.
Yes, and I didn't even know what that meant. Oof. So now I'm coming home with all these questions.
Like, what does this mean?
And my father sits me down with all of his trauma and all of his issues. And he's like, you can't go out in the sun. You can't, you have to, you have to be like all of the other Italian kids.
Oh, and, wow, that's fucked up for him
and I was
too.
like, wow. So And my mom then eventually tells me how traumatic it was for him as a man
Okay.
on the island, the abuse he suffered,
I'm
and
so
then coming
sorry.
here, all of those issues. So he
He had to relive his
felt
trauma.
like he had the opportunity to raise a son and a daughter white passing. Like they
Right.
did not have to go through any of
The
the
shit that he did.
discrimination and the
Right.
racism that he had to.
Right.
So let's just never leave them out in the sun too long.
That sounds so horrible.
That's so terrible. It was like a huge
But do you
issue.
know what's
And that was
crazy?
the first time I never forget. Like he put his arm to my arm and I was like, what do you mean? Like what and there was so much pain, Renee. There was so much pain and trauma that he had from being discriminated.
Yeah.
And this man was such a powerful, proud man. And yet this was the biggest chip on his shoulder. And my mom was
Right.
like, no, you don't understand.
Right. No, you know what's crazy is the world has changed, but it hasn't changed enough where there isn't, where you could walk into. I was having this conversation with Amani today, and I had mentioned that my grandson is listening to like all the music.
Yeah.
And in the songs he says the N-word. Mm-hmm. And we're like, you can't say the N-word.
Yeah.
And then I got this 7-year-old going, but why? Mm-hmm. But why?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean brown skin? What does that mean,
Yeah.
Nene? And trying to tell a child you can't do this or that because bad things can, like, it's reversed almost. The world is really
it's so
fucked
hard
up at
because
this
my
point.
mom was like, why did I have to sit you guys down
And have this
this conversation
No,
with
it's
you?
hard-
Like,
it's
weren't you going
heart-wrenching.
through enough? Like, why did I have to have this other whole other
1 second.
conversation?
We're not going to fully open up that conversation
Yeah.
right now, but we're going to, because I would
Yeah.
like to have you come back too,
Yeah.
especially with your sister.
Yeah.
Because I want to touch more on the domestic violence that affected your life with
Yes.
with your sister as well and your other brother.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, when your father was murdered. I hate even saying that.
I
Your
know.
father
I
was
can't.
murdered.
I can't. I really can't even get myself. So in those 8 months, I got to have some type of relationship with him.
Right.
And for me now, looking back, I got to see all of like his issues. I got to see all of his pain and all of his trauma, and also to the reality that when these men, lots of times they go away,
Right.
they don't come home the same man.
No, they definitely don't come home the same person.
Yeah.
At all. Definitely not. My father the last time my father went away, he came back sick. He came back with dementia.
Yeah.
Not even like the jail mentality.
Yeah.
He just came back ill.
Yeah.
You know, I want to talk about, it's not that I want to leave the conversation as far as you and I not sharing about our fathers being away and that abandonment issue.
Yeah, so we want to get to my dad passing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So being that both of our fathers went away, and we know what that feeling of abandonment is, although it's not abandonment. So a lot of people won't understand when I say this. We were not abandoned. They, as men, did what they had to do so we could always show face for the rest of our lives. So when a psychiatrist will say to me, well, you have abandonment issues, I've outright almost fought my therapist, dead ass, on Mob Wives, season 1 or 2.
I remember this season.
Yes, when she says to me, oh, you don't have the best father. I looked at
Yeah.
her like, what the fuck did you just say? What do you
Yeah.
mean my father's not the
That's
best?
why I never went to therapy.
Exactly. So tell me, that's why I'm sharing that both of our fathers, we have the
Yes.
same experience.
Yes.
But what I don't have that you do is the experience of murder. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say it like that, but I was always worried my father was going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
your father was.
Yes.
So
And I
can you
never
talk-
worried about it. I never worried about it because as much as I knew what everyone else did in the family, I really didn't know what the dynamics of or how big it was of what my father did till I was in my teens, till the second time that he went away.
Right.
And it was unavoidable because
So what was it that he did that ended up
there was
having him
an
taken-
abandonment is like that really sums it up because I
Right.
think that's I think that's even probably more of the issues that my brother feels, and that's
Right.
probably more of the pain that my brother feels, but again, I can't speak for him.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
it's his pain. But for me, that definitely was you do. You feel like you're left. You're like, he's never
you're
coming
not.
back. But you're not because, however, my father, when my mom and my dad were young and they just had me at the time, my father was a dance instructor. He owned his own dance school. That's how my mom met him. It was the 70s. She went to learn how to do the hustle. And my father owned Paco's Dance.
I love Paco.
And all the Italians came to my father,
Papi.
and my father taught them how to do the hustle. And my mom and him, they traveled the world while my mom was pregnant with me. That's how they supported themselves. Right. And then, of course, somehow my father's kneecaps were broken. And then he never was able to dance again. However, he became a seamstress for Oscar de la Renta. So he would sew my mom the costumes that they couldn't afford to buy.
Oh, my Jesus.
For their performances. And then he would drive a taxi cab at night.
My grandpa was
all
a
this
taxi
time
driver.
Trying to make the means to keep my mom in some similar lifestyle that she was accustomed to.
Right. Okay.
And then eventually
his past caught up with him.
Scarface came out, and my father was like,
"Hey,
I could do this too."
Oh,
and
so it was drug related.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way, and
Right.
my father ended up becoming a very
successful drug dealer,
tremendously successful drug dealer. I mean, I don't know though. Is it successful if you get locked up and then you end up dead? I don't know.
It's successful in the sense of money.
Yeah.
But a successful life, no.
No. So for me, when you go back to Abandonment,
right,
I looked at it like you had a choice. Like you had a choice. But then I grow up.
Right.
I'm a writer now. I start writing these stories
that you know
to help me heal.
Right.
But also keep the lights on.
Absolutely.
And support myself. But I have these great stories. Why wouldn't I write them? So as I'm writing these stories, I'm writing now my father, not as my father. I'm writing my father as a character.
Right.
And as I write him as a character, I'm understanding his trauma of his ethnicity, of his where he came from, coming to America, not being able to make
not being able to date
money,
who you want to because of who their father was.
All of these issues, and then this opportunity of this street life.
Right. It happens. And
I could almost understand it, why he did choose it, but when I lost him, it was like...
But he was also pressured to provide. So he found a way that he knew how. And I hear you, that choice thing, but you know what? They don't always, he didn't have a choice. He didn't have a choice from birth. He didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, that abuse, he didn't have a choice about that. He didn't have a choice. He fell in love with a woman that came from the same fucking world I did. He didn't have a choice.
No.
So he tried everything possible.
And he just was never enough.
Right.
It was never enough.
And
Anything
it's
he
got
did
nothing
was
to
never
do
enough.
with him. It's got everything to do with our lifestyle.
So for a while, I held on to that abandonment and the anger of it. It was just easier to just avoid his phone calls. At some point, my mom no longer could. I remember I was like almost, I think I was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And my mom took me to visit him, and the hack took his little wand and went up my skirt.
Okay.
My father ended up in the hole.
You know that happened to my sister Jennifer.
Did it?
You don't know that happened.
No,
I ended up
didn't,
on the visit. I ended up on the visit saying he felt my sister up. My father wrecks the visiting room.
Yeah.
Ends up in the hole. And there I am standing there crying.
First, he does it to my mother.
Oh.
Then he goes to do it to me. By the time he's coming to me, my mom freaks out. So now there's no visiting. It gets back to my dad. So like I said, my dad's now in the hole for like months. And my mom, it's it. I never get to go visit him.
Dad again.
So, and then he gets transferred to Lake Placid.
Bring me to the day that he passed.
So for years, I've held on to, like, none of any of that made any sense to me. So
Right.
it was just easier to be a teenager, to live my life, and to be like, one day,
Right.
I'll show you
Right.
what you missed out on.
Right.
And one day we'll have this argument. you're still gonna dance with me at my wedding. You're gonna sew me my wedding dress.
Right.
And I was very obsessed with like weddings. Like my mother used to give me all like the bride books and stuff. So I had this vision and this idea that we would have
This
the big
day,
arguments,
one day.
and then we would heal from that, and
Right.
it would be good.
Right.
And I got 3 scholarships to film school, to NYU, USC, and my father calls me. So then my father's second sentence, he was immediately deported.
Okay.
The judge felt that he had abused
right.
his freedom here.
Yes.
So he was immediately deported to Dominican Republic. And at that time, we didn't get to see him before he was deported. We just got the phone call, I'm
Right.
here now. And we sat on the phone, and he, for the first time, told me his favorite color was yellow. His dream car was a Porsche.
Right.
And he talked to me about clothes and pattern making and designing, and I could hear his just passion on the
Right.
other end of the phone. So I made the decision I was going to go to fashion school. So I go to FIDM. I break all the sewing machines. I win a writing contest because we still had to take English and
Right.
like the regular subjects. And they come to me and they say, they call my mom, and my English professor's like, what is she doing here? Aside from the fact that like she owes us $18,000 in sewing machines, she's like, your daughter needs to be in film school. Like, why
Right.
is she? And my mom's like, she's like, I saw in her transcripts that she got accepted. So my mom's like, Chanel's got to do what Chanel thinks she wants to do.
Right.
And all I do is just sit her in a room with books and she'll figure it out.
Right.
But thank you, because I know she should be in film school. So immediately I end up transferring to film school and animation. But in that time, I had just sold my second movie, my big film, In the Mix, which was called Dying for Dolly at the time.
And that was with Usher.
And that's with Usher, Chaz Palminteri.
Chaz Palminteri and Usher.
I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and I get get one phone call from Lionsgate that we've signed Chaz Palminteri on.
Right.
And I'm just crying because that's full circle for me.
Absolutely.
Chaz is
It's
my
family.
mentor.
Right.
So I'm crying about that. And it's always so weird because Chaz was always like a father figure to me too,
Right.
as well. So I hang up the phone and I'm ready to dial his wife, Gianna. I'm ready to call them and talk about this. And my godfather calls me and tells me, your father's
Passed away.
passed away.
To be continued on next week's episode.